Deep in a cave 40,000 years ago, a group of humans huddled closer to the fire, not because of the cold, and not because of what was outside. It was because of something that could destroy them from within, and it had nothing to do with animals at all. Today, if you cut your finger chopping vegetables, you rinse it, maybe slap on a bandage, and forget about it by lunch, you don't think twice, you don't plan for it. It's not even a story worth telling. For most of human history, that same small cut was one of the most dangerous things that could happen to you. Not a lion, not a bear, not a pack of wolves circling the camp at night. A scratch, a splinter, a blister that popped at the wrong time. Because the thing ancient humans feared more than any predator wasn't something that hunted them. It was something that got inside them, and once it did, there was almost nothing anyone could do. That thing was infection. It sounds almost too simple to be scary, but here's why it wasn't simple at all. A predator attack, as brutal as it was fast. You lived or you didn't, usually within minutes. Infection was slower, and slower was worse. It gave your brain time to understand exactly what was happening to you, days in advance, with nothing to do but wait. Here's what made it so deadly. Without antiseptics, without antibiotics, without even a basic understanding of bacteria. Any break in the skin was an open door. A hunting injury from a spear that grazed too close, a bite from prey that wasn't quite dead yet, a fall onto sharp rock during a chase. Every single one of these was survivable in the moment and potentially fatal in the days that followed. Bioarchaeologists studying skeletal remains have repeatedly found evidence of osteomyelitis, bone infection, in ancient human remains, which tells us this wasn't rare. It was common enough to leave a permanent record in bone. And once an infection set in, the body's response could become just as dangerous as the infection itself. Fever climbed. The wound swelled, sometimes closing off the area completely, trapping the infection inside where it could spread through the bloodstream. What we now call sepsis, a body-wide inflammatory response to infection, remains one of the leading causes of death in modern hospitals, even with intravenous antibiotics on hand. For someone in a cave 40,000 years ago, sepsis wasn't a hospital emergency. It was simply the end. This is why groups treated wounds with what looks, from the outside, like superstition, but was actually applied pharmacology, tested over thousands of years by trial and error. Researchers examining plant residue on stone tools and in dental calculus at multiple prehistoric sites have identified traces of yarrow, a plant with genuine antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory properties still studied today. Someone, thousands of years before the word bacteria existed, figured out that packing a wound with this particular plant improved the odds of survival and passed that knowledge on. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, archaeologists uncovered Neanderthal remains showing evidence of severe, healed injuries, a crushed eye socket, a withered arm that would have left the individual unable to hunt or fully care for himself. The fact that these injuries healed at all tells us something remarkable. Someone was caring for him, cleaning wounds, likely with whatever plant knowledge the group had, feeding him, protecting him through a period when he was almost entirely defenseless. In a world where infection could kill silently and slowly, group care wasn't kindness for its own sake. It was survival strategy. A wound left untreated didn't just threaten one person. It threatened the group's ability to function, hunt, and defend itself. Now, here's where it gets even more unsettling. Predators, for the most part, could be avoided. You knew where the cave lions denned. You knew which rivers had crocodiles. You could plan around a threat you could see. Infection offered no such warning. It could come from the same spear you used every day, the same rocks you'd climbed 100 times before without incident. There was no pattern to avoid, no territory to steer clear of. The danger lived inside the normal, everyday actions of survival itself, which meant there was truly no way to opt out of the risk. You couldn't hunt without risking a cut. You couldn't build a shelter without risking a splinter. You couldn't survive without exposing yourself to the exact thing that might kill you. And this fear wasn't irrational. It was earned generation after generation, watching people die slow from something that started as almost nothing. Anthropological studies of modern hunter-gatherer populations living without access to antibiotics, groups like the Hadza in Tanzania, and, historically, isolated Amazonian communities have documented infection and infected wounds as leading causes of death, sometimes rivaling or exceeding deaths from large predator encounters entirely. This isn't ancient guesswork. It's a pattern that shows up again and again wherever humans have lived without modern medicine. So, what did they do with that fear? They built an entire body of medical knowledge around it, passed down without writing, tested and refined by watching what worked and what didn't. Certain plants for cleaning, certain plants for reducing swelling, certain ash or charred wood applied to wounds, which some researchers believe may have had a mild absorptive or antibacterial effect. Maggot activity in wounds, something modern medicine has actually returned to using deliberately because maggots consume only dead tissue and can help keep a wound clean. Ancient people almost certainly observed this happening naturally and, in some documented traditional medicine practices, learned to use it on purpose. They also developed something just as important as any plant remedy: division of labor around illness. Injured or infected group members weren't abandoned. They were fed, protected, and given time to heal, even though this meant fewer hands available for hunting and gathering. That's an enormous cost for a small group operating with almost no margin for error. And they paid it anyway, over and over, because the alternative, losing a member permanently, was worse. This single behavior, caring for the sick and wounded, even at real cost to the group, is one of the earliest forms of what we'd now call compassion. And it emerged directly out of the fear of infection, not in spite of it. Here's the part that really changes how you should think about this. We tend to imagine ancient survival as a constant battle against claws and fangs, dramatic, visible, cinematic. But the evidence tells a different story. The real war being fought every single day in every cave and camp was against something microscopic, something nobody could see, something that turned the most mundane injury into a potential death sentence. Predators were the danger you could point to. Infection was the danger that was always already there.